The birds woke her in the half-light of early dawn. She lay there listening, wondering how they could still sing after the slaughter of the night before. But then, she thought, these were still alive, so why wouldn't they sing so long as they had the chance? Axel moved, disturbed by her waking, stiffened, and sat up. He saw her watching him and managed half a smile. "Anybody out there?" he whispered. "Just birds, I think. No crazies." But she whispered too. He scratched a mosquito welt on his arm, and another on his knee. "Do you think they killed Elton?" "They had his clothes, or part of them." He helped himself to the proto-mush James had left behind, then handed her a wad. "How do you think they killed him?" Amy shrugged, not wanting to think, wondering how people like that could get close enough to kill without being seen. Or smelled. And Elton had had a gun. But maybe he was like Axel. The way he lived might not have taught him to be properly afraid of people. "We'll have to watch out for them and keep away," she said, "just like with any crazy." "Can you walk?" "Sure. Can you see again?" "Pretty well. I made a bandage. See?" Using a rag James had left, she knotted it around her head and pulled the strip down mask-like over her face. "I made 2 rips in it so I can look out," she explained, proud of her ingenuity. "That looks terrible." "Who cares?" she said, stunned by his criticism. "It keeps my eyelids up and it shades my eyes. We can't sit here and wait to heal. What if those crazies come back?" Axel looked out at the misty landscape, nervous at the idea of crazies. "What if we leave, and the man, James, comes back here looking for us?" "Why should he? He doesn't owe us anything." She began stuffing the remains of the proto-mush into her pockets. "He might. He seems nice." "Don't count on it." "You try to be so tough." Axel sounded a bit exasperated. "You talk as if you didn't like or trust anybody. And you're always pretending things don't matter to you when they matter a lot." Without looking at him, she took a wad of rubbery mush and jammed it halfway into the mouth of the water bottle as an impromptu cork. "When I'm scared, you know, and try to make me feel better. I figure to know how scared I am, you have to be scared yourself sometimes. But you never act that way. Why is that?" "What good would it do?" She started to crawl toward the opening in the barricade of branches. "Come on, let's go before the light gets too bright." "It might make me feel better, knowing I wasn't the only one scared," Axel said, staring at the clay and grass-stained rumps of her pants. "I know you like me, but sometimes you make me feel like I can't do anything to help you. As if you always have to be in charge. Older, I don't know." Amy hesitated, one knee off the ground, and stared down at a sow bug moving among the pebbles. Axel was accusing her of something, but she didn't know what. Just understanding that he wanted her to be weak. She'd always been self-sufficient, as much as she could be. Expecting help from other people didn't pay. But she liked Axel, and she didn't want to make him mad at her. "How do you want me to act?" she asked. "Why do you have to act at all? Why can't you just be what you are?" "Because nobody ever likes me that way," she said simply. "They never have. People always want me to act the way they would like me to be, never what I actually am." "But I like you the way you are," he insisted. "Then why do you want me to act scared just because I am?" she said. "I've been scared all my life. I'm used to it. If I acted scared, I'd never get anything else done. And it wouldn't change anything, would it?" "I guess not," he whispered, confused by the whole conversation but not willing to give up. "I tell you what, when I'm really scared, I'll just figure you are too. And then I won't feel like such a baby. Okay?" "Okay." She crawled out into the open, looked around cautiously, and stood erect. It felt good to stand after sitting on the ground so long. "Should we go see where they killed the birds last night?" Axel suggested as he followed her. "I don't want to. Which way is west?" "See where the sky's pink? The opposite way. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west." "Right," she remembered then. I'll carry the water bottle, Axel volunteered. The grass and bushes were still wet from the rain. Grasshoppers, sluggish with cold, thudded out of their path. In some spots, wet clay clung to their shoes, and wet fabric rubbed their tender feet. After the first half-mile of walking, the pain subsided to a bearable degree. With the morning sun behind them, Amy felt more confident. Her biggest problem was seeing through the frayed slits of her eye shield as she tried to watch for these new and possibly far more dangerous crazy people. "We're leaving tracks," Axel announced. "If James wants to follow us, he can." The boy pointed back to their blatant path across a muddy stretch. Amy's first reaction was that she did not particularly want James to follow them, and then she thought, if he could track them, what about the wild crazies? Axel stared at her a moment, and then by unspoken mutual agreement, the pair moved up to drier ground. They found the air vent quite by chance. It was hidden by a tangle of bushes grown from seeds the wind had brought to rest against its concrete sides, and watered by moisture trapped by the subsurface structure. The children stopped there to have a drink, attracted by the shade, and as they sat and rested, they heard wind moaning when there was no breeze. The sound came from the bushes. At first, all they could see was concrete, like the ledge they'd left behind. But when they crawled back into the thicket to investigate, they found a slanted bunker-like structure housing a grill vent. Cool air was whistling out of the vent, air that smelled of machinery and oil, dust and onions. "It's an air vent for the freight belt." Axel's whole being brightened. "All we have to do is find the next one, and the next, and follow them home." "How do we do that?" "I don't know." A little of his brightness faded and then resumed. "We'll find a way. I'll crawl up here on the roof. Maybe I can see from there." "Careful, the city's old," Amy warned. The concrete was cracked and crumbling. "This isn't the city," Axel said, pushing Sumac Franz aside, looking for a toehold up the grill. "If you're going, I'm going too." Amy pushed her way to the east end of the structure where the sloping roof almost touched the ground, and there she found a bare spot where no sumac grew. It was the end of a path, like a burrow through the bushes. There were human footprints in the path and strange things on the concrete slab. As she looked at them, it reminded her somehow of the things city people put up around their light panels, offerings to a power that might fail. "What is that stuff?" Axel's whisper made her jump, and she glanced up to see him crawling onto the high end of the vent. "Does some animal sleep here?" No. Amy didn't know what it was. A collection of bones, bottles, and plastic crumples. Small animal skulls and fly-covered things she didn't want to examine closely. All arranged in some kind of pattern, but one that made no sense to her. "Maybe a crazy sleeps here," she said. "It might be warm at night, warmer than the ground." Axel looked down at the path and made a face. "They come here a lot," he agreed. "Maybe every night. Let's get out of here." "Okay." Made nervous by their find, he was about to climb down, then remembered what he'd climbed up for in the first place. Shading his eyes against the glare, he peered off into the distance in one direction, then another. "There's one back here," he pointed east, "and that could be a vent, way down there." "Let's go." Amy was getting more uneasy by the second. The longer she looked at the stuff on the roof and smelled the dried, raw meat, the more she was sure it was dangerous for them to be here. As if eyes were watching them from somewhere in the bushes. "Please?" "Okay." He came down the sloping roof and paused to give a pile of bones a sideways kick, scattering them into the dirt and leaves. "Disgusting!" Flies buzzed angrily and swarmed after the refuse. Amy's stomach churned. She wished he hadn't done that. Crazy or not, people didn't like it when you touched their stuff. She turned and headed down the path. It seemed the easiest way out. Then she heard the slap of running feet on the clay and saw feet come into view at the end of the tunnel, blocking her escape. There was a mass of filthy hair. It had to slow and stoop as it entered the tunnel, but not by much. When it saw her, it bared its teeth and reached out for her, then saw her mask and hesitated. Its nails were long and curved and black with grime, She heard Axel yell. It was more like a scream. Heard him jump to the ground behind her and push into the bushes. She backed into the bushes after him, her eyes never leaving the crazies. Each time it growled, she growled louder with as ugly a sound as she could muster. She had seen a woman do that once, on level 9. The woman had scared off 2 male crazies who were trying to catch her. This wild crazy seemed to be more mad than scared, and after hesitating at her first growl, it kept coming. She twisted through the thicket, getting scratched and torn but not feeling pain, trying to elude those clawed hands. She pulled a branch back and let it snap across the hairy face. It dodged to save its eyes. Thorns tangled in the hair, and the creature cried out in pain. "Amy, was that you?" "No, watch out, there may be more outside." "I don't see any." "We didn't see this one." She fell backward out of the thicket, stumbling over roots, rolled onto an elbow and over on her knees. Her tailbone hurt. Something sharp had cut through her pants leg and her knee. She felt the cut burn and start to bleed. Axel grabbed her right hand and yanked her up onto her feet. They ran. There was no place to hide.